Hello again, co-organizers. It's Devin here from Ohio. Today, I'd like to talk to you guys about, running schools and clubs in schools and different ways to teach and everything that goes along with education and go. So, there's actually no coffee. I drank it all before my video started in preparation because there's a lot to talk about today. Education is something that I'm very passionate about and that I have spent a lot of time thinking about and doing. I'm also the co-director of the U.S. Go Congress along with Paul Barcelon, and I've taken over for and that position's been handed down over the years from many dedicated people. So it takes a special dedicated person to teach in schools, and that's actually why where I want to start with my most important piece of advice. If you're thinking about wanting to teach kids Go and teach in schools, don't do it. That's my number one piece of advice. Don't do it. Um, don't do it unless you have to. I mean, don't do it unless you are internally compelled to spread Go to young minds. Because if you just say to yourself, "Oh, I want to grow my Go club. It would be really fun to share with small people." No, you're not going to have fun forever. I mean, it's fun a little bit at first. They'll humor you, but kids are brutally honest. If you try to keep their attention for anything, if you've ever worked with kids, you'll realize that they're going to just tell you, "Hey, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore." And so if you don't have that resolve, internally of like, "Hey, this is something I care deeply about," and working with kids, just in general, then you're not going to succeed, and it'll be a very painful experience for you. That being said, putting that aside, teaching kids is wonderful. I love teaching kids. When you get the moment of realization, it's super exciting and it kind of makes everything else worth it. And there's a lot of really different ways to go about doing it. And again, I'll talk about that some today. I even have one of my inspirations as a teacher is Paul Lockhart, and he's an incredible math teacher. My background is in teaching mathematics to high school and middle school kids, and I actually managed to acquire a short clip of part of his teaching lesson when he was the American Go Foundation Teacher of the Year, and he gave a master class at the Go Congress. I'll see if I can upload that to the Baduk Club site. It already is on my personal YouTube page. Maybe I'll just link to that below. Um, so the first place that I should probably start talking is, how do you get into schools? You can think all day about how it was best to teach and stuff like that, or where to get supplies, but if you can't get in front of kids, then you're going to have some issues. So um, the place to start is your connections. We all have connections, whether you realize it or not. I mean, unless you are totally a recluse and you're in your basement and you have no friends and you never go outside, then you don't have connections. But if you participate in the community, people are working with kids, or people who know people who are working with kids. So the way I end up getting a lot of my school connections is I just speak about Baduk all the time. I mean, I'm constantly being, "Oh, I play this ancient Chinese game. It's so cool." Blah blah blah, and eventually, I say that to somebody who's, "Oh, that's really interesting. I'm a teacher. Could you share this with kids?" They just see my passion, my energy. I'm always open to teaching new people if during a conversation, if they're wanting to learn. I have a board, like a portable board, with me pretty much at all times. Um, and so that's one of the ways I've got my introductions. That happened. So one good example of how that worked was at this school called ACPA. It's a high school, and I was at literally just my local coffee shop. It kind of bar area thing on OSU's campus, and this guy there is just. He had seen, I think, one of the documentaries on YouTube, and when he then saw me being like, "Go this, go that," he's like, "This is so cool. I want to get you in my school," and simple as that. And so then I ended up teaching at that high school. They had a couple different ways you can be in schools too. You can be after school, you can be during the day, stuff like that. They had an interesting program where on Thursdays they allowed you to come in to teach a kind of 2 hour class. It wasn't just me; it was all sorts of teachers. I had to go in and actually had to pitch the class before, which I think is a terrific idea because then the kids that sign up actually chose to be there, or at least most of them did. And so I'm teaching these classes uh, for 2 hours once a week to a room full of 18 to 20 kids, and there's a lot you can do. Now, I will say though, online with teaching, um, you got to go with whatever the school wants, but if you can, try and do more times a week for less time. I mean, I would much rather do um, half an hour 3 times a week than I would get a full 2 hours once a week, because again, attention spans and regular practice. If you have anything that you're trying to master and you only do it one time every so often, for a little, just a little window, and even part of that's divided up in attention, you're not going to get good at it. And actually ended up having a tournament. Some of the middle schoolers I taught came, and the high schoolers and middle schoolers duked it out on the Go Bon, and the middle schoolers just dominated because I meet with them 2 times a week for an hour versus the 1 time a week high school kids. So I mean, that's part of it. Other parts of it are these middle schoolers who just got obsessed, which is cool. The high schoolers were kind of still cool, and they didn't want to necessarily engage as much. But the part of what I tried to do actually to get those high schoolers to get some more regular practice is I gave them homework, which is a very simple exercise of just go online and play. And I taught them all. Luckily, the school had computers. I taught them all how to log into OGS, create accounts, and then play people. And then I would actually give, if they ever asked and sent me, hey, here's my game. Could you review it? Could you help me out? Understand like where I went wrong? And I would just, I would work with the kids on their games as well. Now, granted, I'm 1Q. I'm kind of strong, but you don't need to. I think this is the classic teaching thing. You don't need to be super strong to teach absolute beginners. I mean, like 20Q is fine because you're teaching the basic rules. Now, eventually, after you get past that, it would be nice to have some more information, but there's so many resources out there that again you still actually don't even have to be an expert. You can now lean on some of those other resources. But okay, so ACPA was one. The other one I talked about is the middle school. The way I got that connection was a guy that I knew in college that I studied math with ended up getting a math teaching job. And I reached back out and I said, hey man, I'm doing this Go thing. I really want to teach Baduk to kids. Is there any way that I could do this in your school? And he's like, well, yes, on Fridays we have general assembly with the kids. You can come in and pitch the club. And for them, they had a session near the end of the day. That's kind of like their free time. And if they were all caught up on their work, it's really neat school. They do mastery-based learning. So if you're, it's not A, B, C, D, F. It's do you understand it, or are you still progressing? Genius. Not getting into that school philosophy, but too far into it. But what that allowed me to do is to go in, and then if kids were mastered and they had all their work complete, they could come hang out at the Go Club. And actually, it was a half an hour of break and a half an hour of free time if you're mastered. So it actually ended up being an hour, or any kind of all kids could come for half an hour, and that club thrived because I think what ended up happening is an interesting dynamic emerged where really the elite kids, the ones that were have their stuff together, that were looked up to by other kids, were the ones that had the time and the freedom to come to Go Club, which made Go Club kind of cooler because now you have kids saying, this is something that, like a privilege to do versus the Thursday ones, oh, it's a class, like, I got to push you into it kind of thing at the high school. Okay, other schools I taught at. I taught at a elementary, Wycliffe, and they, the way I got in there is I can't even remember how initially I learned about it, but they have an app, you can just probably look up some of the stuff online. They have an after school program, and once a week. And so, well, technically you could do it multiple times a week, and I actually stopped doing it because it was a little less interactive than I wanted it to be. But I probably should go back in and try to do it twice a week or something. And that you just literally just cold application. Again, I actually luckily knew somebody somehow connected me to it, but so I had a little bit of intro. But I did this school application, just a really inspirational write-up. Maybe if I can find that, actually, I'll include that in a link below, about what this Go thing is. I think I called it like the game of emperors and samurai, which is a cool, you got to think of cool titles, hooks to get people in. So I did that, and people signed up, and I had like I think five little kids, adorable, adorable little elementary schoolers who constantly tried to get on their iPad when they weren't supposed to, and all sorts of crazy stuff. Actually, probably the most behavior issues come from the young kids. But and eventually, when they got into it, if you could start a class and get them running, um, it was an incredible experience. So that's one way. The other two schools I teach at are Chinese schools on the weekend. So there's a lot of, in cities, cultural schools for groups of people that you want to, I guess, bring together their culture. And I think this is probably more than just Chinese schools. Although, of course, if you can teach in, an Asian type school, that's great, because Wei Qi, Baduk Go is very well known and respected in Asian communities. Although, amazingly, actually, in these Chinese schools, I think the parents care. Well, at least the feedback I've been getting talking to them, and you should talk to the parents and see what it is they care about. Why did they sign up their child? A lot of them really, the kids are working hard all the time, and they want their kids to be able to socialize. And then so they get this kind of dual benefit where they're socializing in a structured way that's also helping them learn cool things and play a game. But the social aspect seems to be actually incredibly important for parents. And so, you shouldn't just focus on, let me give you this lesson plan, let me give you these problems to take home and all that kind of stuff, because the social aspect is crucial as well. The Chinese schools, they exist. I reached out, did a little write up. Now, luckily, I had a connection through the Chinese community, because at the Go Club and the tournaments, I would have Chinese people coming in. And one of them had previously, I think like 5 years ago, tried to run a class in the Chinese school. So I got connections through there as well. So those are great options, those two Chinese schools in my area end up working out. So there you go. So the connections are the way to go. And again, if you don't have them, you can just look for schools in the area, look for after school programs you can apply to. But just again, you actually have connections. Just talk about Go a lot, and you will find them. And say you want to teach kids. Use those words. People will connect the dots if you say that. Okay, other ways to teach kids. There's other ways that I don't do, but that I've seen people do really well, and that I think is engaging and can work. Not everywhere, but some places. There's obviously the kind of famous New York Institute of Go, where Stephanie and Ryan are running classes. And so that idea, if you can get space, maybe in a library, or if you can, have an actual space that's, like a Go Center kind of thing, that's great. And you can then invite the community out to come in. Now, I actually think this, for example, would be great in Columbus, and I'm looking into trying to do something like this, because all my little Go classes and clubs end up having kind of like these 2 or 3 super dedicated kids. So I might have a big class of kids, but then there's a couple of them that really latch on. Those are the ones that I want to be able to somehow take to the next level, that I want to be able to say, hey, let's put you with other dedicated kids. And so to have like a central place in a city or town where the real serious kids could meet, that'd be key. So the New York Institute of Go does that. The National Go Center does that in Washington, D.C. They just started doing classes, which I think is great, and advertising to parents and letting them know like, hey, sign your kid up, it's gonna be great. And how do you advertise for parents? That's a whole other story. I won't get into this video today. It's going to be long enough anyway. Another great program is in Boulder, Colorado. Paul Barchelon, the other organizer for Congress for youth, he's been doing youth stuff with the American Go Foundation forever, along with Terry Benson. And so Paul runs the Sunday Go Club in the library. And that one is specifically for kids. I mean, they have adults occasionally, will come, especially to teach. But they've done an incredible job partnering with the library to get kids in there that have especially never played the game, and then try to keep those kids and reoccurring. And I mean, I see some of those kids when I go to Congress every year. Like they're repeat customers. These kids are raised in Go. Their parents play, and I think having that community, especially engaging with the community through the library, is a really, really smart idea. There's also online groups. The AGF hosts a website called Tiger's Mouth, and I want to believe actually just talked to one of my new Go Club players this last Thursday, and they told me that they had such fond memories of chatting in the forums of Tiger's Mouth as a kid. Now this person is in their mid-20s, and they're coming out to my Go Club, and it's because of that foundation set with them as a kid. So that's incredible. The Another one I want to mention is one I just heard about. I've been trying to connect to more Go players over the world. So if you're a Go player, a Go organizer, excuse me, and Go player, but particularly Go organizer, reach out to me. I'd love to hear your story and hear what you guys are doing. A gentleman I talked to in Ukraine, him and his wife worked together in a kind of an interesting school that's set up there. A little bit of history that he told me. In Kiev in Ukraine, the government wanted to keep kids off the street, and so they started funding organizations that got kids involved in different mind sports and activities. And so there's a building they have. They don't have to pay rent. It's not their building entirely. They have to share the space, but they have lockers for their stuff, and they can hold, kind of places for the kids to meet. They can hold tournaments, and I think they also can have other Go players outside, not just kids. But because of the way the funding is, obviously they do a lot of focus on the kids, which is great. And then he was telling me too, for the tournaments, they don't actually have like money prizes. They'll do cups and medals, and actually each player even gets chocolate when they come. And that's kind of a neat little add-on that I wanted to mention. Kids love chocolate, obviously. Prizes, things to incentivize them. I'll talk about this in a little bit. Yeah, are crucial for kids. Internal desire is the goal, but at the end of the day, we also have to understand the reality of some kids. They need some of that extra push, that little bit of motivation. Okay, so that's the ways to teach kids, in schools and doing your own classes and stuff like that. But you might wonder, okay, great, I want to teach kids. I even got into school. How do I get supplies? So let me open up a screen to show you guys that. Here's my notes. Okay, one way, if you're in the United States, is the American Go Foundation. If you're not in the United States, there's almost certainly something like that in Europe. I probably should have looked it up before the video. Or again, like Ukraine has different resources as well. So there's different ways. But in the U.S., we have the AGF, and they have a couple different buttons up here. Start a club. So if you want, you can do K to 12 schools or college programs, and library programs, and then books for libraries, and a couple AGA things. But the key of it is these free resources. So here's the crazy part, right? If you set up a school program at a school, you go on the AGF, you download this little application, or I think it's maybe even an online application. You have a teacher at the school or the librarian or someone send in that application, and the AGF will send to the school boards, stones, some how to play Go or way to go packets and posters and Hikaru no Go books. Which, I mean, again, getting kids stoked on Go, have them watch or read Hikaru no Go. And actually, another trick too, I even read Aji's Quest. I'll show you a little bit about that more to the kids at my elementary school clubs, and they love it. So having some sort of fun visuals and pictures for the kids to see here, is crucial. So so free resources there. And then if you need some more resources, you can you can buy prizes or promotional resources and stuff as well. And then this is the youth site, so let's actually go to that. This is the Tiger's Mouth site that I mentioned earlier, and here's Aji's Quest, written by, I want to say, Inca Wolf. Holy cow! First of all, just as a Go player, I love this story. And secondly, the kids really love it. I mean, I actually managed to print it out to show it to them, but you can do a screen or something like that, and it's just a really fun story about this silly animal, and all the animals are interesting and related to Go, and it's super cool. So that's a great resource for kids. The So the AGF is a good one. I know Britain, BritGo has some stuff you can print. Actually, here's something that I've kind of stolen from them. It's a level one, or sorry, kind of a packet of puzzles, Go puzzles for the kids to do that helps them learn while they play. I will say this doesn't land really well with younger kids. It's more probably like a middle school, high school thing. Um, but it almost like you almost learn while you play, and also great. This is great to see like where are the gaps in my kids' knowledge as they play. So this is super cool. I've actually this one I printed out. I have this. So what you can do is if you're going into a school, and maybe even a library, ask them to print it for you. So my teacher friend, for free, not to me, part of the school budget, printed a crap ton of these packets. I did front and back, right? So I'm responsible environmentally. But I think it's still like 11 pages. Now this is level one. They actually, I think, have like 3 levels of these packets, which is really cool. So maybe I'll link to my online repository below of these. Now, one of the things I try to do is actually, because it's the British Go Association, I created the Higher Go Association. Sometimes I print this off and I cover it up so I can kind of a little bit on brand. But I actually reached out to the guy that made these packets and asked permission. He's fine with it. He just wants to see Go spread in schools and have it work out. So that's a great resource. There's a Level Up books you can buy. So I mean, this one's not really going to get thrown to you for free, but these are a great resource for kids. You're going to have a lot of I think it's going to land well for children because look, ooh, comics. This is exciting. And then past that, you have kind of again more puzzles to do, but it's just more readable. There's not so much text on this page. There's not a whole lot of text, for example, on this page, but each of these is a different puzzle. And when I was working with kids, actually just last week, one of the boys was just like, I don't want to read. Well, he actually said, he said, I can't read. I'm like, I'm watching you read. Like, you read aloud to me. Like, I know you can read. And it was because each one had like a different word. Or another boy was so fast. He just did the problems without reading them. And so he wasn't actually giving the right answers because he wasn't doing the right problems because he wasn't reading what the prompt was. That would be my only critique about this. But again, for middle school, high school kids, this is actually pretty good. I wouldn't also necessarily hand it out in big packets. If you could, maybe, especially for me twice a week, just do it page by page, because the big packets are a little bit daunting. But my reward for when they do these packets or accomplish stuff like that is pins. So I can show you. Here's a pin I made. Well, it's not going to look great on screen. I'll show you. I'll pull some pictures in a little bit and show you the pins. Actually, let's go down. There you go. So I made all these pins based on a Brickco pin system that I saw. I thought the Brickco one wasn't as beautiful, so I wanted to kind of create my own. And you see, I made a Phoenix specific pin for the middle school club, AGA pin. Actually, I haven't printed a lot of these. I haven't actually printed and turned into pins yet, but at 30Q pins to start people off. And then also at the bottom, I have some square pins, which I want to give out kind of as rewards for kids that do certain special things. Like, for example, the sensei, my thought is, if this kid, maybe they're not the best player, they're not, winning a lot of games or in school tournaments or stuff like that, but they're helping a lot of kids. I want to reward that behavior if they're teaching others and bringing in those that are a little bit below them. That's really valuable. Or Red Ears, the middle one. It's, from the famous ear reddening game. But I want to give that to a kid that, maybe they did something, really surprising that was beneficial for the club or for themselves and Go. One kid, for example, at my middle school club, he made his own folding Go board. Crazy. Really neat. Really neat. Way for him to engage and go further outside of the club, and I think he did it for another school project as well. So he kind of comboed Go into it, and I would love to give that kid this award and say, hey, you've surprised me, you've surprised the club. Or another one is like if kids can memorize a full game. I actually had them do that at the end of the year last year for the middle school. They ended up memorizing and showing to each other full pro games and talking about what was going on, which is super cool. And the essence of Go, or the essence. Is something I want to give to somebody I think who carries, Go and Baduk well in their club and school and stuff like that. So, and of course, ranks. We all know ranks. They're shiny and fun. I'm actually going to try to probably share those pins and stuff with you guys as well. Making a lot of content. I want to get it out there and empower organizers and teachers to do great things. So um, those are some incentives and stuff like that, and how to get supplies. Okay, now how to teach kids. That is obviously one of the things that's important to talk about as well. Just to start off with a couple easy low-hanging fruits, and then I'll get into some of the more intense stuff. Um, you need to get their attention. So this poster was created by Inkwolf as well, the person who made Aji's Quest, and you can see it's a very fun poster, right? Go Club, come play the ancient strategy game of Go. Although I might call it Baduk. Don't know how? We'll teach you. Anyone can learn. All ages welcome. All ages welcome might not land well in middle school, high school. The rest probably would be fine. And when and where, and then you can list your information below the when and where, at the school club. Now the AGF also sends you posters. I don't have a photo up here, but they send you posters that you could use as well. They're okay, but I like this one a lot. So. Okay, how to teach. Here's me teaching at middle school. All these kids have graduated, they've gone on with their life, but fond memories of bringing a demo board. Now, I got the demo board from Paul Barcelon. Not everyone's going to have a demo board. You can use projectors. You can. I'm hopefully trying to get supplies for you guys up on the website one day, so you guys could order things like this. But in general, there's a lot of neat workarounds. I've seen people use these hanging kind of like boards that you just slide things into, and that's a really interesting way to kind of have Go pieces lined up. It's hard to describe, but or magnets, or there's all sorts of things. So I bought the behind the Go board, that little whiteboard. I bought that just to make it work. Now having these kids solve a kind of a Go puzzle in there, and so that's one of the things that you have to be really careful about when you're teaching a club. Don't make it monotonous. Try to make teaching kids, try to make new things happen all the time, because that'll engage their brain and get them excited, and keep coming out. And there's a lot that goes into Baduk. There's so many different things aspects to go into. I sometimes bring in videos to show them quick little clips, or memes, Go memes, nifty, beautiful Go photos. I talk about ancient history of players. I'll play simul's against them. Everyone loves trying to defeat teacher. That I don't know why. Like, since it's like, oh, let's get him. Let's get the teacher. Or eventually, once the kids get good enough, I set up games between each other, because they're kind of awkward sometimes with each other. And so it can be really good to connect them like that, and make sure that the handicap. I try to know where each kid is, so I can know what they should be playing each other at. Although I said handicap here, I actually don't use that word a lot when I'm playing. Actually, let me show you guys another thing that I do. So I updated the club website since I showed you last, and I have a teaching page for people, but there's nothing really on there right now, to be honest. And it's just trying to be beautiful. This stopped working, of course, but I haven't updated this. I haven't changed the code in a while. I just pushed an update, and then I have down here youth sign up in youth games. Now my plan is, I haven't even rolled this out yet anywhere, but is to not have people sign up themselves, but to put this info in myself, just so I can track it all on a spreadsheet. So I've shown you many spreadsheets before, and then link what school in there and submit, and then it'll kind of put it into the spreadsheet, and then later I can come over here to recording game results, put in the names of the players, and what I call head starts. It's just handicap. Record that, and the winner and the point difference, and use that to track my club members in schools over time, because because knowing like kind of who's coming out, and just seeing that in a nice visual, or like who's been absent, or and checking back in with them. Hey, I've noticed you haven't been in Go Club. What's going on? And they're, oh, I'm doing track. Okay, cool. You're not. You haven't lost interest in Go. Oh, actually, in this photo, you can see the board the kid made on the bottom right-hand corner. There you go. There it is. Really cool board. And so you can check in with the kids if you haven't seen them in a while. Kind of give yourself little automatic reminders. Or if someone's losing too much. So this is the main reason. If you're tracking games, it's hard to keep track of a bunch of kids. But if you're tracking games and you can see what the results are, and someone's losing too much, you can either work with them directly, or you can pair them up with a strong kid, or you can kind of encourage them to take a bigger head start. In English, the word handicap, unless you're a golfer, kind of has like a negative connotation, and that's why I use head start. So there you go. Oh, the other kids are also playing in this library at the school, which is great. For them, you can see one kid's on his computer too while he's working. Like, I'm pretty relaxed, and that's the key too when you're teaching. You want to be relaxed about the game. You can't be just hyper, oh, so serious all the time about everything. You can see on the left there, those kids are playing in the middle of the board. I think it's on his own board. He made it so that you could play 9x9s. It's kind of weird way to set up, but it's very inventive. I like it. Another thing, this one girl came and she'd like the stone, but she wanted to do some Go art. But you can see in the right, there's a packet. It's been worked on as well. And Go art's definitely supported. Whatever kind of Go activities kids want to do, if they're using stones and getting engaged, like that's great. Now, I would have occasionally kids being like, "Oh, can we also turn this into a Risk club or chess club?" And chess, I'm a little more open to, and I like Risk, but I'm there to teach Go, and so I was just honest. No, I'd like to keep this Go, and just try to make sure it's rotating in the different activities we're doing, puzzles or games or lectures or boards or all the different things that existed. So. So that was a little bit information as well for you guys. Let's see here. Boop, ba-doop, ba-doop. Okay. Other things in teaching kids. Actually, quick humble brag. So again, this middle school I really loved. I ended up getting like an award from the school, the Friend of Education kind of thing for the whole city area, Worthington area. And so if you put in time, you're going to have people notice, right? Some of the schools, the Chinese ones, they actually pay me, which is great. The high school as well paid me a small amount. But my favorite was the one that didn't. Is the middle school, and I was able to engage in those kids in ways that were really unique, and I think that's why I ended up winning that award, because they kind of saw that positive impact that I was having, and the way that kids connected. And that actually, right there, that's the word, connection. So when you're teaching, people get so absorbed in the content they're teaching. Again, I love Go. I love, Joseki, and I love puzzles, and I love opening theory, and I love all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's really, really, really important that you remember that not everybody has the same passion as you, but everybody is human. And so, these young children and teens, just like your friends, they're looking for a human connection. I mean, just like anybody in life, they're looking for human connection. So if you can bring that, show up, be authentic. Don't try to manipulate them, because these are standard things that people don't like, don't want anywhere in the world. Whether it be work or the grocery store. And so you show up to school and you just try to be this person that others can lean on and respect. And if you do respectful things and you take a real interest in the kids, say, hey, Timmy, what's up? Like, how's that D&D campaign you're doing with your dad at the library or whatever? Timmy's not a real person. But the D&D campaign at the library is something true about one of my kids at the club that I've taught at. You get to know them as people, and they want to get to know you, and it's it's a mutual back and forth. So that was a lot. All my videos are long. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to try to do eventually a video series, breakdown where in all these different things, organizing clubs, tournaments, and schools, I make them bite-sized and not such sprints. And part of the issue with the sprints too is they're easier to get up, which is important. I want to get this information out there, but I also, I'm sure I'm missing things. I haven't talked about background checks, for example. A lot of schools have to do background checks, and there's so much to cover, honestly. I teach. One thing I want to mention real quick before I go back. This will probably be the most controversial part of the video. Is I teach Chinese style and counting. I do not teach Japanese counting. I definitely do not do first capture go. Kids want to play the real thing, and they can handle it if you're not doing crazy Japanese rules where you have to understand what's dead and alive just to finish the game, which is a very difficult thing to know. If you're doing Chinese, you just play it out. Just put as many stones on the board. It doesn't matter. You're not losing points. And with Japanese too, it's an ego-crushing event when you have somebody who's captured 30 of your stones come back and fill in the entire board. That is horrible experience for anyone learning the game, but especially kids. So I am strongly in the Chinese camp, and it is ridiculous that we would teach it any other way. Don't do it. And if you if you do teach it other way and you're offended by me, just try it out. Try the Chinese way. And see what happens. You might be surprised. People come back more, and they aren't staring at the board like, "Wait, I don't understand this eyes thing." Eventually, when I do get to eyes too, talking about vernacular and words, I use the word rooms. I talk about groups as fortresses, right? So you're trying to build a fortress, and in the fortress, you want to have separate rooms. You might have a big room and a small room. The eyes is weird. It doesn't look like eyes. This is a very neat cultural fact, but that you could call it eyes in Japan and all that stuff. But it's you want to connect with when education, you want to connect with things people already understand. So if you're saying, "Oh, this is a fortress," I can see how I've surrounded space, built a wall, right? Talking about walls, fortress walls, and then now there's inside of the fortress, there's divisions of rooms. So one day maybe I'll do a nice video on explaining all the different terms and ways I teach specifically. But I just wanted to mention some of those things quickly to you guys because honestly the most important thing is all the other stuff I mentioned previous. But this has a little effect too, and so it's good to know. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna take up your time today. If you found this useful, support me by sharing this. That's really the main thing. I want to get the word out there and help other people. So if you like it, let me know. And if you're an organizer, send me email or messages. Hello at Baduk. Actually, yeah, hello at Baduk Club is a good one. Baduk.club. And that's my main program. I didn't bring it up today, but this video is sponsored by Baduk Club, which is this project I'm working on to literally unify the entire Baduk world. All these Go players and Weiqi players all over the world. We just released a great feature that allows you to mark yourself on the map if you live in the middle of nowhere and you're having trouble finding a club near you. One of my many hopes is that if you mark yourself on the map, you might discover, hey, there actually are people near me, which would be really cool. But also it came from a time that I traveled down to Costa Rica. And thanks to an old site called findgoplayers.com, I was able to spend 2 weeks with a friend in the mountains near a river playing Go every single day. So having a map that can connect traveling Go players, I think is really useful. Whether you're traveling far and wide, like to Costa Rica, or you're just traveling a couple towns over, that'll be really useful. So if you can get also more people using this site, that would be wonderful because hopefully then it'll be able to continue to have a bigger and bigger impact. So that's what I want to do. I want to have a positive impact in the Go world. So if you are on board with that, let's work together. And but honestly, just the fact that you took the time to watch this video means that you're trying to make a difference too. And I really appreciate all the work you're doing. So thank you very much. And see you guys in the next video. Thanks.